Ivy Valentine subscribes to Mark Yoon. So should you. Enjoy your treat!
Now today's video is all about confirmation. It's what it entails, what it actually is, and what I think people should kind of assume that it is rather than what people think that it is. So there's a lot of this that goes around. I've talked about this before about Soul Calibur and other fighting games, but now that we have Sparking Zero coming out, and there's a whole host of YouTubers that are actually talking about not only leaks, but predictions and speculation and so on and so forth. There's a lot of words that get thrown around when just little tidbits come out, and confirmation is the biggest one I see, especially used for clickbaity titles. And I'm not saying that all YouTubers that actually use this kind of method or use these words are clickbaiting, just that it needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis, but in general, a lot of the clickbaiting terms are associated with official kind of announcement type deals. And I just want to get into the differences and talk about instances and look at the speculation that we've gotten thus far and just talk about what's actually official, what's not, and why or why not. So the first thing that I want to talk about is confirmation bias. Now, for those of you who know what confirmation bias is, just bear with me while I get this out of the way, because I don't know how many other people out there aren't familiar with the concept. So confirmation bias is when you look at a set of data points, or let's, in this instance, say you look at a result of a leak. Let's use Sean Schemmel talking about how his voice roles for all the different forms of Super Saiyan require different minutions in his voice, and he mentioned Super Saiyan 4. I've seen a lot of people that actually said this is confirmation that Super Saiyan 4 is going to be in the game. Now, this is not confirmation, because confirmation would be, you know, the official source actually took the time to go out and say that, like, this character is going to be in the game. So anybody you've seen in a trailer is confirmation. It's confirmed that that character is officially going to be in the title. Confirmation bias, however, is when you look at a set of data points and you use it to actually reach your objective conclusion based on what you actually presupposed in the first place. For example, if I were to say, I really want GT to be in the game. GT is the most important thing for me, and I think GT is the #1 standout for me to actually enjoy this game. Therefore, any instance of GT being in the game that's possible, I'm going to look at as fully GT being in the game. Sean Schemmel letting that slip. That means that for me, GT is in the game. It's not quite official, but that's supporting my own bias, so that's confirmation bias. That means that I'm pretty much just the end result of what I want is what I want it to be. Instead of following kind of the path of data where it leads, you're kind of just like data picking and cherry picking what you actually want to use to support that conclusion. And this is like human nature. It's not really like a bad thing per se, but it definitely is when you're trying to convince other people of your opinion. You kind of need to take confirmation bias and put it aside and just look at the things as where they are. For me personally, like I said, even though Super Saiyan 4 and GT, like Baby and stuff like that, are the #1 things that I want to see in Sparking Zero, when I heard Sean Schemmel say that, I thought, oh, cool, there's a possibility that GT is going to be in the game. I'm not confirming or denying that it's going to be in the game, but there could be a number of instances why Sean would say that. Was he talking about just the differences in the voice lines, not specifically saying that Super Saiyan 4 was in the game, but he was saying that the voice he uses for Super Saiyan 4 is different from the other versions of Super Saiyan, and even though he had to be reminded of them and has references in front of him to help reach him of that, it's just funny because he didn't realize how much that would come back to bite him. Now, I would look at that as a person with confirmation bias and say 100% that means GT is going to be in the game. But it doesn't necessarily mean that. There's a host of other reasons why he could have said that, what he could have been referring to, what the context was of that actual question leading up to that statement, what anything comes out afterwards. There's a ton of things that you can actually just like fall in line and saying this is a possibility instead of just coming up with an objective reality about what the situation actually is versus what you want it to be. And that's basically confirmation bias in a nutshell. Now, what's actual confirmation? Like we've talked about already in this video, actual confirmation would be if they showed a trailer and you see that character is going to be in the game. What is not confirmation? People saying that OG Goku is going to be in the game based off, you know, that him punching Piccolo through the stomach like he did in the martial arts in the world, I think it's the 23rd Budokai Tenkaichi, maybe the 24th, in Dragon Ball when he defeats King Piccolo. I believe it's the 23rd. But when he actually does that, there's a little tiny image that people have been showing around that's like a little like game image from the thing, and people are saying that like this is confirmation that OG Kid Goku from Dragon Ball is going to be in the game, which is not necessarily the case. It's not a complete confirmation. This just helps your case. You can use it as a detail, a data point, a helpful hint, something that gives you better confidence that it's going to be in, but it's definitely not official, and it's definitely not concrete in any sort of way. That was a blurry picture, so first of all, you don't even know what it is. Second of all, this could be from a cutscene from the game. This could be from showing off any kind of flashback situation where Goku is remembering battles that he had in the past. This could be from one of the what if scenario things. Any and all things that could actually be a possibility are still a possibility until that possibility is demonstrated to be false. So when you're talking about that this little picture of Goku automatically confirms that Kid Goku is going to be in the game, that is not inference. That's not any kind of positive affirmation whatsoever about it actually being in the game. What that is speculation. And speculation is taking a set of data points and actually just trying to make guesses on them, more like educated guesses. And this is that's data in your corner for what your point is, but it still doesn't mean that it's real. It still doesn't mean it's confirmation. It still doesn't mean it's confirmed. Speculation is usually just guesswork based on a set data point. So if I were to make confirmation or speculation, I would say, okay, well, GT has been a part of every mainline Tenkaichi game pre-Raging Blast. So I believe that since this is being touted as a direct sequel to Tenkaichi 3, GT will therefore be in this game. Now, that's not confirmed, but I'm using speculation based on inference from past data points to compare to current and try to use a projecting trajectory of where I think things will lead, if that makes sense to you. So it's basically like making an educated guess, and it's more probable in your mind, but it's still not confirmation. Now, you got to be really careful when you're watching YouTube and going on Instagram and whatnot, because a lot of us are going to be using confirmation bias, and this is the opposite also. There's the people that like think that nothing is going to be based on that. I'm kind of leading it up to like, everyone knows that my hope is my hope, and I will be taking data points that I see and hopefully helping with myself, but leaks and all these kinds of things are not confirmation like at all. They're just, I guess, inference data points that you can use to infer that something is a possibility of occurring. And it doesn't mean that any of that's like 100% going to happen. That's like saying in Xenoverse 2, well, since we have, 13, that means that we're definitely guaranteed to get Super 13. That's not at all like even a possibility at this point yet, because you just have to set data what you have, and you're just using data and making an inference and making a prediction about the future, which is just speculation. There's also deceit out there too. Like, a lot of people will see that people want GT really bad, and they'll go out of their way to fake something or to try to trick you and deceive you in some way into getting your hopes up that GT will or will not be in either way. And it's up to you to discern between those two arguments and try to make up your own mind about whether you believe what the source is saying is actually legitimate or whether it is nefarious. So I leave that up to you, but just use your skepticism and look at every point as its own individual point and piece of context without actually jumping forward to conclusions based on little points, because that's conspiracy theory. When you take a bunch of different facts and you try to string them together in a way that they're not supposed to be strung together, that's conspiracy. So while I don't go out of my way and say that like everyone, like I said, is being nefarious in doing this, you do have to watch out for that, because people do want engagement, they do want clicks, and they know what the hot topics are. They can see the trending hashtags, and they're going to try to use that to their advantage to put forth something in your mind to get you to watch them. And that's basically what you don't want to look for. And yes, a lot of these people will lose their engagement after whatever is revealed is actually revealed, but it helps them in the short term, and it also kind of warps your mind a little bit to loosening up your healthy skepticism, and you're actually going to start believing things that you probably shouldn't believe based on faulty evidence, because you're not doing your due diligence when it comes to looking at certain points. And that's why when some people say, well, it's not that serious, let people believe what they want to believe, that's where I have the problem and issue with that. Because people will get online and then they'll postulate their ideas that they heard from somebody else, and it'll get upvoted, and they'll just try to go off and off and off and off on it, and it's going to gain so much traction that people definitively think that this is actually occurring, and then when it doesn't occur, they actually blame the developer instead of blaming themselves for falling for like faulty theory. For example, if I haven't been told that GT is not in the game, and I believe that GT is in the game based on everyone saying that GT is definitely in the game, and the game comes out and then GT is not in the game, I can't get mad at the developer for not including GT because they never told me that they would. Does that make sense? I should be mad at myself for falling for the hype and falling for other people's faulty lines of questioning and theorizing and speculation that led me to get to this point where I had 100% like full course belief that this was actually going to be in, and I'm really upsetting myself. And then it overall makes the game worse for you than it should have actually been intended to be, because you're supposed to play it for as it's presented, not what you wanted it to be, if that makes sense to you. Games are a product, they're a package. They're supposed to be given to you in a certain way. They can't give you all the details up front. They are also required by their own set of marketing values that they are dictated by the publisher, and they have a timeline of releases for when things are supposed to go off and when things are supposed to be shown to build up a certain science of hype, because this is literally what marketing is for. And when you're going against that and you're actually trying to prove that things that will be shown or won't be shown, then you're just upsetting yourself and other people who are expecting that thing as well. And I say this as somebody who really wants GT in the game. I will be upset if GT is not in the game, but I'll be upset at myself for expecting that. I was upset when Raging Blast 1 didn't have GT. I was upset when Raging Blast 2 didn't have GT. I was upset when Battle of Z didn't have GT. I was upset when Ultimate Tenkaichi only had Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Omega Shenron, and that's it. That was the only representation in that entire game of GT, even though it was called Ultimate Tenkaichi and it's still by Spike Chunsoft. It's like they used that name to build up false bravado within yourself, and you had your own expectations based on that. I did. I was upset when Burst Limit didn't go past the Cell Saga. I was upset like at any number of things that I had false expectation of myself for these games, and I may have enjoyed them more, and in hindsight I probably did enjoy them more than I initially thought I did or let on, just because I let my own brain kind of run amok and, you know, kind of control the way that I was trying to be hyped, instead of just like wanting to be surprised by the game, playing the game, getting my hands on it, enjoying the game, playing with my friends, and then building up that hype naturally, if that's what makes sense. So all in all, what I'm just basically saying is that don't believe everything that you see online when somebody says confirmation, unless it's like officially confirmed. Nothing is confirmed. Like, you may have evidence and you may have data points that help your conclusion, but it doesn't mean that your conclusion is valid and sound. It doesn't mean that your argument is valid and sound. It just means that you have more backing to whatever argument you're getting there, but you still have to reach the conclusion in either to have a conclusion. There's things that I'm trying to do right now, like I'm trying to find out the trademark listings for Sparking Zero. Because if you notice on the back of every single game, I'll show you an example right here of Xenoverse 2 on PS4. The different series have different licensing rights and titles, so they all have to be mentioned separately because they're different reservations, they're different trademarks. So if you see on the back of a box Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super, that means that you know something from that series is going to be in there because they had to use the official trademark. So usually when back in the day before like we actually had like the internet to rely on, like let's say for like Tenkaichi 1 and whatnot, when I would go into GameStop, I'd read the back of the box and I'm like, okay, I see GT on there, so we're going to have Super Saiyan 4, or at least some representation of GT. Then I can make my informed choice. So I'm trying to make an informed decision now. I mean, I already pre-ordered the Ultimate Edition and paid for it, so I don't really make a choice anymore, but I'm still trying to find information on the copyright and trademark and reservation stuff for the actual game, so that maybe I can get hints that what's going to be in the game is what's going to be in the game. As far as we know though, anything that's not being shown is not even postulated for DLC. We can't expect to be in the game, so it's just be hyped together and I guess just like try to root for our stuff being officially revealed, but that's the only thing we can actually do. I want to get to the last poll I did before we actually end the video. In the last poll I said, who do you think are the playable story mode characters besides the obvious Goku, Vegeta, Trunks, and Gohan, and I actually include Piccolo in that as well. And 53% of the vote, which is the overwhelming majority, said that Bardock is going to get his own episode. 16% said Frieza, 25% said Future Gohan, and 6% said Other. And this is out of a pool of 104 votes. And I actually made a video about this, like who I think the other characters are actually going to be, so you can feel free to go check that out. And I want to thank you guys for spending the time with me and watching this video. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of today's topic and video, or join us on the Discord. The link is in the description box below. And as I always say, guys, I love it. Thank you.
And thank you.